I say this up front, being a mother scares most women, especially women with ADHD. Are you sure you want to tell people that you have ADHD?
Have you ever felt misunderstood during this time?
Very much. When you're a mom, people expect us to always get it together, Steph.
Yeah, all the time.
People see us as just, you cannot sit still. Why are you doing this and doing that? There's some shame to it. It's not easy living with someone with ADHD. I've had women who have ADHD reach out to me and say, tell me the truth. I don't want all those sanitized versions. Tell me what it's like to really be a mom.
I'm sure you went through the struggles, but today you're like, yeah, I'm ADHD. So what?
I'm ADHD. Wow, that's big. We are.
We are. Much of the conversation around ADHD centers around children, their diagnosis, their learning, difficulties that they may face. But what about the parents, those who might have to parent with ADHD? Today, we are lifting the silence on this topic. I'm with Dawn, a life educator, corporate trainer who has been in multiple sectors over the span of 26 years, training people how to communicate better, and also the author of Hope with ADHD. She is also a mother who is diagnosed with ADHD, so she knows firsthand the chaos, the challenges, and she is able to share her experience today. So Dawn, when did you first get diagnosed? And was that like a slow unfolding or it was a sudden realization for you?
Well, thanks, Steph, for the intro. Thanks for having me here. I think I could go on and on about ADHD, so let me try and summarize. I've always known, for one, that I've always been a very emotional child. And all my life, people around me know, I've always been labeled to be extremely emotional. But I realized after a while that there is a reason for that. I think it was about 3 years ago. I was already a mom then. I think my boy was just about maybe 4. That was thick in COVID. And in those days, when you get tested positive, you actually have to go to a separate facility. At home, because I had someone who was so young, and my mom, who was still around there then, actually was a home dialysis patient. So her immunity was quite compromised. So my husband ended up testing positive first. So, well, long story short, I think in the thick of
Positive for COVID?
Positive for COVID. Yes, that's right. So after that, we decided that no, he didn't want to go and stay in a facility. So we're going to look after him at home. But that also meant that all my executive functioning skills got called into extra overdrive. So I was keeping a job, I had to do training, I had to attend meetings, I had to take care of the little one, I had to make sure everybody's meals were taken care of, segregate them as much as possible. So I was running on literally 5 shifts. And something in me at that time thought, there's something going on with my mind, my emotional dysregulation. Am I riding myself a little bit too high? I also was getting some coaching certifications, so I kept a lot of, weird hours because of the US and timing and all. And one day, I realized that one of my course mates, who was a mental health therapist, right, she worked with people with ADHD. So I reached out to her and I said, look, I think I want to get a diagnosis. And the reason for that was I found myself crippled. Just one day, I was standing in the center of the room. I was holding 3 things in my hand. I think it was a set of keys, a remote control, probably a clicker or something. And I just froze. At that point in time, I thought, this is just so much to take. I just broke down and I cried. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew there were a million things because mothers, we know, right? Our core business is supporting everybody else's core business.
I mean, being a mother itself is overwhelming. And you have ADHD on top of that.
Which I didn't know of. So that was a telltale sign to me that it's time to get some answers, and I was ready. So when I reached out to her, guess what she told me? I think she was really kind and supportive. And she asked me this. She said, actually, you don't have to tell me. I saw the signs. So I asked her why. And she said, I have so many patients or clients that she works with, and you're all incredibly passionate and creative. But once you go on the low, you really crash low. So that was one. But she then asked me a very good question, which was about, why do you want a diagnosis? Do you really need it? So I think on those 2 pillars of really good self-reflective questions, I started thinking, maybe it's time I got some answers. So it was in a way slowly burning, but knowing that for so many years in your 40s and as a mom, and then deciding that I'm going to get me some diagnosis, not the easiest thing to do.
But once you found out, did that shift the way you saw yourself as a mother? You were mothering already, a 4-year-old, you said, and then you found out in the midst of being a mother. How did that shift?
I was elated to get the diagnosis. I was
Happy?
so charged up, I didn't even see one psychiatrist.
Now you
I
have
went
a
to two
reason.
doctors, right? Because I wanted to prove for sure that I'm not imagining things. Because most people that you tell that to, we'll go a little bit into that later, will tell you cannot be and this and that. But something shifted for me that day. I was happy to know what I didn't know. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, okay, to be honest, I never saw myself as very maternal, even though I've been an educator, a coach. I've always had that instinct. And I say this up front, being a mother scares most women, especially women with ADHD. I've had women who just got married, who have ADHD reach out to me and say, tell me the truth. I don't want all those, sanitized versions of lovey-doveyness. Tell me what it's like to really be a mom. So anyway, back to that. I knew now that there is a reason why there's so much unknown. Maybe there was some difficulty with structure and routine, which we're all taught that kids need, but they also need other things like creativity and some sort of nurturing. So it shifted because I now know I have the answers.
Well, if we could step inside your mind, how this daily chaos might look like, or creativity.
I can see you're very excited about this. I came prepared with 3 analogies. I should just do 2. I think the first one was this idea of a kaleidoscope. Years back, there was a band that I had to babysit for my work in the media industry. I cannot find any semblance of them online now. I think they're probably from Indonesia. They've got a really interesting name, Steph. They're called Kaleidoscopy Curiosity. What a mouthful. And so at that time, I thought, okay, nice name, huh? But then later on, I likened it to what ADHD is very much for me in a personal way. Why? A kaleidoscope, the colors. And for me, the colors are about seeing strengths in people around me. And I've always been that. I've always been that strengths builder.
When I met you, you were so affirmative. I was so touched. I was like, wow, I need more of Dawn in my life.
Okay, more Dawn time. Yes. So that, I think the potential, the infinite possibilities of what kaleidoscope could be, curiosity, that's that texture. The second one was, it's really interesting. So as my son was growing up, one of the things that boys are very into are cars. So my husband then decided that let's go and to this place. It's a Tamiya car track. So I went in there and I saw all these tracks with all the cars. Now, bear in mind that much about ADHD is also about sensory overload, stimulation. So when you go in there, it could actually be quite, overwhelming, but I loved it because every single track there to me was thought track. So it's like, that's exactly where my mind is, because with the colors and the lanes and everybody doing their thing, but wow.
So it was very comfortable to you.
I was so happy. I mean, I knew nothing about the sport. I'm like, okay, yeah, go play
You felt
this.
understood.
I felt like, this is it. This is me on the, today I'm at track now, then I'm jumping over to the other side. Colorful cross-section. For those who wanted to compete, it was there. For those who are just starting out, you can start slow. That about describes the number of tabs of thoughts I have in my mind.
I can relate so much to this, Dawn, because I was running a business for mothers and kids last year, and I was trying to do a million things together at once. And someone looked at me and said, have you ever thought about being diagnosed with ADHD? And I said, oh, no, tell me more. Everything that she drew out, I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. Oh, that sounds like me. Oh, man. And she asked me to open my laptop, and there were like 30 tabs open, and she's
just 30, right? It should be as many as it can take in that frame.
Yes. So, Dawn, have you ever felt like you were misunderstood during this time?
Very much. You think when you're a mom, people expect us to always get it together, Steph. Ever felt that way?
Yeah, all the time.
Or I can't show
That's
certain...
the expectation, basically. Yeah.
Or that even if you do have some areas that are not as positive, you don't really talk about it because you don't want our sons to be judged for that. So one of the things that I felt was a bit, I would say, discouraging. I've had people who were very well-intentioned. They would tell you things like, are you sure you want to tell people that you have ADHD? What if someone judges your son for that? I thought that was a very interesting question because it wasn't just about me, but it was about my son. So what are people going to think about him who has a mom with ADHD?
If this story resonated with you today, please support us by sharing, liking, and subscribing to InMotherWords. And now back to the episode.
Very often the narrative now in schools, it's not positive for most children, right? So they can come back and tell you things like, oh, ADHD is a sickness. So that alone sets that tone. So everything else that you try to undo and unlearn from that, they are trying to equate with behaviors they've seen around in the school. And not all schools or teachers are equipped with the skill sets to talk about that and to really help.
So going back to this friend, right? When I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go and find like answers as well. Like you, I resonate so much with that. And I wanted to get a diagnosis. And then my friend was like, but why? Why do you want to get diagnosed? Don't forget, if you get diagnosed, it will go onto your career record. Like it's officially going to be in your record. So would it affect your chances for career progression?
She brought this up.
Yeah,
Okay.
she brought it up. She maybe your chances of getting a job and things like that. Like, would that affect you? So the advice was, no, you don't have to. Just move on. Accept this and move on. But of course, you went to get yourself diagnosed, and I'm like, but that's what I wanted. So tell us more. Like, how did that feel? You went to 2 different doctors. You said.
So I cannot resist. I need to respond to the first half. And I think your friend definitely has valid points. So part of this book that I'm writing on, it's about the lived experience of ADHD through stages. And one of which is, of course, every ADHD child, or we call it an ADHDer, at some point grows up and becomes a professional. You will have to deal with questions like, do I share? How do I disclose my condition? And I talk about that in the book simply because it's not very helpful to tell someone I have ADHD without knowing how to communicate facets of it. And that can only come from the self-awareness. It's how much we know about ADHD. But the diagnosis part, why did I go to 2 doctors? One was at the recommendation of a friend. And of course, medication was suggested at one point in time. And the other one was more detailed. It was probably a 3-stage process involving a brain scan, a self-rated questionnaire, and then the doctor will help make sense and unpack some of the findings. So in the brain scan, I saw that there was something, okay, here's a big word that I love, oxyhemoglobin levels. Okay, essentially, it just shows there was a rhythmic pattern.
Let's say that again.
Oxyhemoglobin levels.
Globin levels. Okay,
so the amount of oxygen in your brain as you are going through different tasks. And there was a noticeable pattern. So for example, let's take 15 minutes as a very convenient yardstick. Every 15 minutes, I need to switch up the tempo of what I'm doing. So the doctor did something really very helpful, Steph. He told me, he said, I think you need to explain to your family members what it's like for you, so that they know it's not that you're not paying attention to them. I thought that was lovely because, people see us as just, you cannot sit still. Why are you doing this and doing that?
And also the need to interrupt. It's not that we want to interrupt. It's basically the thought process is like that. and
That's right.
and you're trying to catch the wave, right? And you're trying to share as well. But you do come across, I wouldn't say you, I would say me. I came across as disruptive.
I'm not surprised. So I have friends who would tell me when they sit next to me for some like town hall session, which are hours long, "Hi, Miss Dawn, can you sit still?"
It's not just that. My producer says the same thing.
Aha! Like company.
You fidget so much. I'm like, I do.
know, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole body experience. Hi, my name is Dawn. I'm a corporate trainer as well as a coach. I work with emotional intelligence and communication skills to help people in a professional and personal capacity to become more skilled at communicating and forming positive relationships.
Do you feel, I would like to talk about this feelings of overstimulation or like the struggles that comes with living with this and also tying it back to mothering with this. How do you see it from your day to day? Like you've spoken about the corporate world. What about your day at home?
I think for children, at least given our son's ages, that rhythm, it's something that they really embrace because no 2 days are the same.
Yes.
So I get that, for moms who are all about the structure and the timing, that's great. And there is a certain place and time in that. Like, for example, in school, they spend already 6-7 hours in their clockwork. Mm-hmm. So when we come back, how I show up, I think it's really that
More
vibrant,
exciting for him.
that booster of like,
So
wow.
that's why my son prefers mommy, because mommy is more exciting.
Engaging, we're more relational, we can bring in the spontaneity.
And this whole picture of not fitting in, sometimes I'm like, I can't. It's just, I tried, but I can't. And finally just, embracing that with compassion, I would love to touch on that.
So that's a good place to start, I think, is about post-diagnosis. I think sharing that diagnosis with people takes a lot of courage. Mm-hmm. There's some shame to it. Why? Most typically, I'll get responses like, you have ADHD. Yeah, you people just want to attach yourself to some label or something, right? Everybody is ADHD. And then they will say, I'm also a bit ADHD.
Yes, I'm getting
so,
that. Yes.
I mean, we've chatted about this. I wanted to tell them however diplomatically. It's not like bubble tea where you order and you tell them 0% sugar, 25%, 50%. It is the extent, the pervasiveness of how these things like emotional dysregulation, executive functioning skills, your working memory, and something else that's really important, which is the rejection sensitive dysphoria. And then again, another very big phrase, but what it just means is that when we go through something we perceive as rejection, or failure, or maybe a real failure, there is this intense emotional pain that we feel.
That's why the crash is so bad. Like when you crash, you really crash.
And as a mom, right? I talked about this before. So the first time my son went into primary one, and I had feedback about him being, the word was disruptive, with like second day of school. And I'm like, hey, that's a big word
I'll
to
be his
use.
friend.
I mean, like, okay, distracting to some extent. He's just very conversational. They talk a lot. But that's all part of them easing and transitioning into like, pre-school to formal schooling. I felt this wave of rejection. It was almost like as if, so my son has that like primary level, like he didn't do things right. And then as a mom, what have I not been doing better?
Yeah, you always blame it. The
Yes.
self-blame.
Yes. So I take it upon myself and I try and deconstruct that and go like, you should have told him this. You should have done that. So that
Why
shame.
didn't I? Why didn't I?
So suddenly we're 7 years old again. And then we're trying to make sense of it.
And so what helped to stop that spiral?
So knowing what my triggers were, very important. For a long time, in that particular case, what is it? Is about other people's opinion. Well, I chose to volunteer in school quite a bit because, well, it's been a long time. I only became a mom at the age of 40. So clearly the divide is
Yes,
huge.
there's a CNA article about you. And
So I thought that was interesting because I really wanted to see what it was like for them. I felt at some point I could understand why they might feel a little bit restrained. It's not the easiest place to learn, but the system has to run. And I think what helped was knowing my triggers. So if people say something, how do I depersonalize it? Are there things that are opinions? Are there factual instances? So the thing about being talkative. So I actually asked my son and he asked me, how can learning take place without talking, Mom? So
I
was
really like your son right
okay,
now.
right, you have a point. So going back to the triggers then for me, for him, and then understanding what I couldn't control.
And that brings us to the flip side of ADHD and the superpowers that comes with it and the advantages actually that it brings.
Superpowers. So sometimes you get people embracing that term a lot. I want to be very honest. On some days, it really feels like a super dreader. And I think sometimes because of a lot of the content created on social media, people want to embrace it like, oh, so I have this superpower. I have ADHD. And having talked to almost 50 people with ADHD for the book, it can be that some days, but most days it's really, not. I do find that the flip side of that, the chaos and the creativity. So I'll give you an example. When he was a lot younger, spelling is not the most exciting thing to do. I realized he loves Nerf-Guns. So we got together and I attached
That's my son today. He's
alphabets
ordering one.
to cups. Paper cups, plastic cups, right? And then I like it too. I enjoy it. So I told him, okay, come on, let's look at the list of words you need to do and let's make sure we shoot them in the correct sequence to get the words done.
It's really nice, yeah. Since the day that you found out to your journey of, really getting your diagnosis to now embracing it, a life of it. Like, I want to know what changed for you because I'm sure you went through the struggles. But today, you're like, yeah, I'm ADHD. So what?
I mean, wow, that's big.
Yes.
So picking up on what the doctor did advise me on, I think the first thing was to talk to my family members, the people who we love around us. I think that change happens when we can also get them to understand the journey that we're on. Because a lot about emotional regulation is actually co-regulation, Steph. I'm sure you've heard that term before.
Yes.
Typically, co-regulation happens when, let's say, an adult caregiver tends to be there to help a younger person, a child, co-regulate their emotions. With ADHDers, it is immensely helpful. And also, these people bore the brunt of, I think, a lot of pain points that come up. It's not easy living with someone with ADHD, like time blindness, poor impulse control. So that was the first. If we constantly pay attention to who we are and the things that make us tick, our triggers. So triggers can be positive as well. It's not just the negative triggers, the things that make us go like, this is what I value. This is what I'm going to anchor this to, and this is what matters. And that nothing that we have in terms of our relationship, our success or all, is ever built or destroyed overnight. So that gives me that time and the space to want to see that this doesn't work. I might need to switch it out. What else might work, right? And getting help.
There's often a quiet shame around forgetting things, feeling overstimulated, or not being consistent. And have you experienced that spiral, Dawn?
Almost on a daily basis. If you remember, I was supposed to be here earlier. So I think for me, time blindness is something that most people, I think it's not unusual that people struggle with it. For the ADHD, there are certain things where time just blends, right? So that's one. So if I can get 5 out of 7 appointments in a week on time, I'm happy. But I think there was one incident that really caused a big imprint on me, left a very deep imprint in my heart. And that was something very simple. My son was preparing for a childcare graduation concert. And I knew that my late mom, wanted to be there, Steph. She loved him more than anything in the world, as with most grandparents. The school had sent out a reminder, I missed it, to say that grandparents can actually attend the final rehearsal. On hindsight, I think that really broke my heart because I didn't get the message. I probably ignored it. I didn't set any reminders or timers, and my mom never got to attend that. So when she found out after, I not only had to deal with her disappointment, I had to deal with my son's. And now that she's not with me anymore.
The regret.
Yeah. This happened so many years ago, but till this day, that lapse, that forgetfulness, and it's going to come on a daily basis. I have forgotten to pack things for my son, yes. I have forgotten to do some things or to set support systems in place. It does get, some things are not, we don't get a do-over.
Yeah.
I really had to just apologize and tell her, I'm so sorry, I missed. And for the life of me, I don't know why I missed that. When I go back, I'm like, because probably the messages got superseded by something else, but no excuse. I think in the right time, in the right place. Clearly, that's not my zone of genius, administration and keeping time and tabs on things. But I've also realized that I cannot do everything. So where I really need to what is the word? I wouldn't say subcontract, but farm out the work and get help. I think that's when, as an ADHD mom, knowing where we need help in whatever areas is vital. It's so helpful.
So it's really accepting that some things that has been done cannot be undone. And to really not throw yourself into that downward spiral. Is there some practical day-to-day support or hack that you would love to leave with some of the moms that are listening today?
It's a very common one, and it works because it's so simple, making things visible. And I think making things within reach. So the visible part, nothing new, giving yourself reminders that might help. But also, I've often heard that, when people want to take advantage of certain tools that have come up, things like a Google Calendar, keeping your time in check, that's all really good. What has worked for me is I'm really old school. I want to say old school. So pen and paper, right? So I have an organizer where everything goes into that. I actually enjoy translating these pen and paper appointments into also like a Google Calendar-ish. I note things down. I pen and paper. I also have voice memos that I record because these are parallel tracks of executive functioning prompts that are support systems for the mom with ADHD. Because sometimes when I'm carrying things like groceries, I don't have time to write down something or to speak it out. And speaking it tends to give it clarity as well. And sometimes you realize that there's a faster way of doing things. So should I do this and that? And then I also I get people involved in the system, the ecosystem. So if it's a secondary caregiver, if it's people in your space, your best friend, your spouse, your work colleague, whoever, if you can think of bringing them on board your system, of helping you improve your working memory, and then the executive functioning skills will knock the wind out of you. I think that might be helpful.
Well, thank you for sharing such a personal story because I'm sure many moms will appreciate listening to this. It is something that is so difficult, and yet you give it to us as a gift to learn from. And we hope that we can draw the strength. If we are not strong enough, we'll draw the strength from you.
Yeah. From the people around us, right? From
yes,
each other.
And just to surround ourselves with people like that will already help.
It makes a difference.
Yes. Thank you. Mothering with ADHD comes with unique challenges. But as Dawn's story has reminded us today, it doesn't define us. There are insights and good things that we can embrace through this journey. If you resonated with the story that was shared today, I hope that you will share this with a mom that might be going through something similar and that she will embrace this unique parenting journey that is ahead. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.